Hello everybody, welcome. In this video I'm going to go through AZ-104 Microsoft Azure Administrator Exam Labs. And so the exam passing score is 700 and the exam will be judging us on this criteria over here, making sure that you can do this comfortably and know, where they are and all the information about it. So without further ado, the first thing we're going to go is get the lab started. So to get to the lab, simply go to Google and type in AZ-104 GitHub, and then click on the first link, and then click on instructions, and then click on labs like that, and then you will click on the first lab, which is going to be manage Azure AD Identities. And then from that point on, it will get you to do the following lab scenarios, which is create and configure Azure AD users, create Azure AD groups with assigned and dynamic membership, create an Azure Active Directory tenant, and lastly, manage Azure AD guest users. So that's what we're going to do. And before we do that though, we will also make sure that we're doing this on a brand new tenant. So if you have not set up already, you may have to set up an Azure trial and you will be able to do this afterwards. So I'm going to go through my Azure AD portal. This is my new tenant, and from here on, we'll go to a couple places. So if you have not, the first thing is you're not going to see Azure Active Directory that way. If you don't see it, it's okay. Just search for it, and you will be able to see Azure Active Directory. And then from that point on, what it wants us to do is going to create user, and the user will have the following identities. That's what we want us to do first. So we'll go ahead and create the user with the following identities, and then we'll put the username that, and then we'll create a password. And then on the usage location, we want to set up to United States. And then the job title, we wanted to make a cloud administrator. And the department will be IT. And then we'll hit create. Review the information, make sure it's good, and create. And also note, in the real world, you want to provide more information like the first name, last name, just to be on the safe side, so you know who's the user belong to. So hit create. The next thing, according to the lab, is we want to go ahead, click on the user, and we will grant the user the cloud administrator role. We will grant the user this role so the user can create other users, delete, and make sure that they can perform that. To do that, come over here, select the user, and then click on assign roles. Click on assigned roles rather, and then click on add assignments, and then search for user administrator. That's the role. And it says here you can manage all aspects of users group, including resetting passwords for limited admins. That's what we want. We're gonna hit add. So it's gonna take a second, but if you click on the notification over here, you'll see that the user assignment has been added successfully. If we refresh it, you will see it, but it will take a second. So don't be alarmed if you don't see this showing up right away, but just wait for it. And that's it. The user AAD user 1 now is the Azure user administrator, and from that point on in the instructions, we're gonna go ahead, log into in private window, and then we will be able to create a new user while we logged in under AD user 1. So that's what we'll do. So we're gonna hit new in private window. Actually, before we do that, come to the profile, copy the UPN of the new user because we will need that to log in into an in private window. So click on new in private window, type in the user or the portal.azure.com, paste the user UPN in here, and then the password I specified, and then the password again, and then the password, the new password, because we will have to change that password, the default password by default. So make sure that we don't have, our password being weak. So I'm happy with the password. Now I'm gonna hit continue or sign in. Okay, this is where it's gonna try to make sure that you're protected, and Microsoft is doing this to make sure that your account is not compromised, or because without MFA, really the only thing stands in the way of hackers is gonna be that password, and the password, no password is strong enough to lock out hackers. So that's why MFA is important, and so we need to set it up. But I'm not gonna do it in this lab. On the real world scenario, you should set it up for all your accounts, and we'll have a follow-up video about that at some point in the future. So for now, we'll hit skip, and it's not gonna let us do it easily, but we will do it either way. So we're gonna hit skip again, and then hit no, and then one more time we're gonna hit skip. It's almost like we are agreeing to the fact that our account will be at risk, and we're saying yes. So once we do the hit no, now we're finally in. And then from this point on, we'll go to Azure Active Directory, and then we'll create a brand new user again. Hit new user, and then we'll go back, get the user information. Here it is on the lab over here. Here it is. So we'll go get the new user information, AD user 2, and then let me close the screen so just to make it easier to go back and forth. And then we will put in the username, and then on the password we will create it again. The usage location, we will choose United States, and then the job information, we will make it system administrator according to instructions. And then the department will be IT. And now we'll create our secondary user. So that's done. So just to summarize what we did so far and what we according to the instructions. So what we did is so far, let me close that screen. So what we did so far is gonna be, we were logged in into Azure Active Directory. We were tasked to create a user called AD user 1. After that, we were told to copy the user principal name, which we did. And then we also were told to make that user and a user administrator role in Azure, which we did. After that, we went to in private window, and then we created a user while we logged into AD user 1. And so we did it. So now we're ready for task number 2. So in this task, our task is going to be creating groups, but before we do that, we need to try in Azure AD Premium P2. That's the only way we can do these groups, and the groups can be either dynamic and assigned. So before we do that, let's come back into our primary user we logged in into, and then under that we're going to go to license, and we're going to go to all products, You can see I already tried this, but if you haven't, you can click on here and then try free trial start. But I already have it, so I'm not gonna do it again. And now what it's telling us to do is going to be click on Azure AD Premium P2 and then assign users. So the user we're going to assign is going to be AD user 1, AD user 2, and we hit select, and then we will go ahead complete that. And so once we refresh it, we have made the two users a member of the license, so that they can do a lot of things. And if you look at the service plan detail, they have access to Azure AD Premium 1, Premium P2, multi-factor authentication, and cloud app security. So Microsoft Defender for cloud app security, MCAST. So that's what they have access to. So now what we're wanting to do is going to be go back here. It says here create a new group called IT Cloud Administrator, and then the description would be a Contoso IT Cloud Administrator, and then it's going to be dynamic user. And we'll do that with a query, job title equals Cloud Administrator. We'll do this a couple times. So let's go ahead and copy our first group we're going to be creating, and then go to the my main page and then click on groups, new group, click on IT Cloud Administrator, and then we're going to copy the name IT Cloud Administrator, and then description will be Contoso IT Cloud Administrator, and then it will be a dynamic user. Query is going to be job title equals, and it's going to be Cloud Administrator. And then we add the expression. So that's our first group done. The next group is going to be IT System Administrator. So we're gonna go ahead and paste that in, and then the group is gonna be Contoso IT System Administrator. It's going to be dynamic user once more, and then the query is going to be job title equals, and it's going to be System Administrator. And then we add the expression, we'll save it, hit create. The last group we have to create as part of this demo is going to be IT Lab Administrator. But this time it's not going to be dynamic user, it's going to be assigned. So let's come over here and create a new group. It's going to be security as well. And then we're going to make it IT, Contoso IT Lab Administrator. And it's going to be assigned. On the members, it's telling us to go ahead and add. On the members, we're going to add this two group we just created, so that way they can be a member. It's almost going to be like a nested group basically. So let's add our group IT Cloud Administrator and System Administrator, and hit select, hit create. So now we created our groups. We'll refresh it, they will start appearing slowly. And then if you look at the instructions over here, what it wants us to do is make sure that the users start appearing in the IT Cloud Administrator and IT System Administrator as well, because of the dynamic we set up. So the dynamic attribute is going to apply because the users, if you look at here, AD user 1 for example, has a job title called Cloud Administrator, and so we're using the dynamic query as a job title. So that's how they're gonna be a member of the group automatically. So, but it will take some time for that to populate the membership. So it's always recommended to wait about 30 to 45 minutes. But in this lab, we don't want to wait that long. So we will see if if they start showing up. So let's come to the groups again. We will click on IT, Cloud Administrator, Members. We don't have any members yet. And that's to be expected because it's going to take some time. While it's doing that, let's review what we just did. So we created a brand new group called IT Cloud Administrator. We created another group called IT System Administrator. Once we created the group, we added a dynamic membership query, which is referencing the job title equals Cloud Administrator. So any user that has a job title called Cloud Administrator will be a member of that group automatically. And this is great for managing users automatically, so you don't know you don't have to manually move them to groups and whatnot. So, and then we also created an IT lab administrator. So this is gonna be the overarching group, if you will, and it's gonna be a member of the two groups, and we can add additional group to this group. So again, it's better to assign something instead of maybe targeting individual users out into the group. You can create one main group, add an additional group inside that group, like a nested group, and then you can grant permissions that way. And so that's so far we got. Now let's see if our IT Cloud Administrator starts showing up the members. Okay, so finally we can see the user start appearing. That literally took 20 to 25 minutes to show up, and it could take longer according to Microsoft. So you can see that this user, the AD user 2, is added to the group automatically. We didn't have to do anything. And the reason it was added automatically because the user has a job title called System Administrator, and the group has a dynamic query that says System Administrator. If the job equals System Administrator, then the user will be added to the group. Let's verify the Cloud Administrator group. Same thing. If you look at this user again, you can see it has a Cloud Administrator job title, and the group in question has a dynamic core role of called Cloud Administrator. If the job title equals Cloud Administrator, then the user will be added to the group. Great. I'm going to follow the next steps, which is to create an Azure Active Directory tenant. So to do that, we will be on Azure Active Directory again. We'll be on our main tenant, and we'll go to Manage Tenants, and then we'll go ahead hit Create Tenant, and we'll click Next on the default. And now we will choose our tenant name will be Contoso Lab, and then it's gonna be Contoso 5009. Yeah, I'm gonna make it unique, so 500990. So that's gonna be the name, and our UPN will be Contoso 509990 on Microsoft.com. So that's what we're gonna make it. We're gonna hit next, and we're gonna hit create. To verify that we're not robot, we need to enter our captcha letter successfully. Otherwise, we won't be able to create a tenant. So we hit submit. Once it's done, it will be able to have a success in here. So we'll wait now. You can see the tenant creation was successful, and so we'll hit basically it's done. We don't have to do anything else now. We'll verify that's the case. So if we come over here to our home and then manage tenant, you can see Contoso Lab is created, and our domain is going to be contoso50990.microsoft.com. So now, according to the lab, we're going to switch to that tenant, and we're going to create another user, and then we will use the UPN we've copied to create that user onto the new tenant. So let's go ahead and do that. First, we're going to switch to the Contoso Lab tenant over here, and then we're going to hit users, new user, copy the name of the user we're going to create. Username is going to be that, and then username, and the name is going to be that. And we're going to go ahead and put in our password. And then we will put our usage location, US, and then the job title for this user is going to be system administrator, and then it's going to be IT for the department. So that's done. So we're going to create a guest user next. So to create a guest user, we will need the UPN we copied earlier. So we're going to come over here and go into our primary tenant. So it's always better to know which tenant you're in. Otherwise, you could end up creating the user in the wrong place, in the wrong tenant rather. So hit new guest user, the name, email address, welcome, okay, and United States. And the department will be, or job title will be IT Lab Administrator or Contoso Lab Administrator. And the department will be IT. I'm just gonna type that in. Okay, if you're ready, we verify our information. I'm just gonna put a name here even though it's not asking. So we'll do that and hit invite. So here you can see now we have 4 members and 1 guest. If you look at the guest blade, you can see the name, the department, the usage location. We can have other information, but that's basically it. And so you can see the email address also changed to the guest email. And we can revoke session, reset password, delete, whatnot. So we can do all those stuff and the creation time. So that's how you can go ahead and create a guest user. So that's it for the lab. The cleanup process, I won't bore you on that. I'll do that on my own. But essentially, what you have to do is you have to select all your groups, for example, and then just delete. And it will take a while for all of it to be deleted. And then you have to come to the account or school account instead of a personal account. You must ensure corporate assets are protected and the device meets standards for security and compliance specifically. You need to be able to enable or disable a device. What should you do? The answer is you will join the device to Azure AD. by joining the device to Azure AD, our users can log in using their work or school account. That's the answer. Okay, the next one I'll give you a chance to answer it. Identify the three difference from following list: Azure AD, Azure Active Directory, and Azure Active Directory Domain Services (AADS). So this essentially is on-premise. This is Azure AD in the cloud. What are the difference? So I'll give you 5 seconds. Go. So remember, we're choosing three answers from here. So the first answer is going to be there are no organizational units or group objects in or GPOs in Azure AD. So if you choose that one, you got it right. The second one, remember Azure AD is web-based, so we'll be using HTTP and HTTPS communication. So that's the second one. And the last one, Azure AD can be include federation services. When you're setting up a directory sync, you can set up federation service as well. That's the third answer. Okay, the last two, that's the question number 3. You would like to add users who have Microsoft account to your subscription. Which type of user account is this? I'll give you 5 seconds again. The answer is going to be guest users. So guest users are going to be our answers for this, because guest users, you don't have to have your organizational email account. They can be having any account, Microsoft, Gmail, you name it, and they'll be added to our organization, just like we did on the demo. When we created a brand new tenant and added a user, we were able to add the guest user into our main tenant. Second to last question. You are configuring self-service password reset. Which of the following is not validation method? Select one. So you got email notification, a text or code sent to a user on mobile phone or office phone, a paging service, and a set of security questions. Which one is not right? So go. If you choose paging service is not part of it, you got it right. The last question. You are assigning Azure AD. You're assigning Azure AD roles. Which role will allow the user to manage all the groups in your team's tenant and be able to assign other user roles? So what's the answer? I'll give you 5 seconds again. Okay, the answer, it's going to be global administrator. If you choose global administrator, you got it right. Global administrator can do everything pretty much. They can assign members, they can elevate somebody permissions, they can do everything. So that's why you cannot have multiple global administrators. You're limited. You should have only 5 or 4 if possible. You don't want to have like 20 or 30 global administrator, because that would mean you don't know who made changes to your environment. So that's it. Now let's bring up the actual